草绘的工具目前来讲呢，还不是特别完善，和传统的 CAD 软件来讲，我们还缺一些功能，但是对 HyperMesh 的需求来讲，我们基本上是够用的。那这里呢，我们再凭空创建一个草绘平面，点击这个地方，然后这里呢，刚才是 Surface， 现在选择 Plane， 选择一个全局的草绘平面。然后这个地方呢，像平移的距离0的话，就是在那个坐标平面上。然后这一边你可以去做任何你想做的这个事情。然后这边已经提供了一个帮助的话，它也有个不错的视频教程，我们把它打开来看一下。
Sketching in Inspire is similar now to other CAD systems in that you create sketches on planes. The sketches are saved as sketch entities in your model, and you can return to them and modify them parametric. So let's get started. First, we go up to the Sketch menu in the tab list, and now you have a whole series of sketch tools. If you have a blank model, a great way to start a new sketch is using the New Sketch tool. Just click that, and it presents you with the primary planes in the model that you can start a sketch on. I'm going to select the Z plane, and it rotates that square to the screen, and we can begin. Now we can just use the traditional sketching tools like rectangles and circles to begin a drawing. I'll start simply here by drawing a rectangle in space. You'll notice two things about it. One is we've shaded it in now. When it's shaded in, that means it's a closed loop, and when you leave the sketch to pull that into a solid object, it will be solid. If it's not a closed loop, it'll be not shaded, and you'll just get surfaces from the pull. Number two is you'll notice it's blue, and that blue is to tell you that it is underdefined, which means you haven't put enough dimensions and constraints on it yet to make it unambiguous. And if you look at the left side, you'll see there's a small legend here, and the blue color is telling you undefined. Your goal when you leave a sketch is to have it all fully defined. That way, when you make parametric changes to it later, it'll have predictable behavior. So let's look at a few things you can do with the sketch. Now, it's underdefined, so that means that you can continue to modify it with the mouse. So I can pull on the corners, I can pull on the edges, and it just moves around in space. If I want to begin to give it dimensions, I'll just grab the dimension tool, and let's put a dimension on this edge. I'll put in an even 60 there. And I'll make a horizontal dimension for its width. I'll make that an even 90, say. Now, you might have thought that would be enough to turn it black or fully defined, but it's not positioned in space yet. So if I leave the dimensioning tool, you can see those dimensions don't change, but I'm still able to drag it around. And that's because it doesn't have a place relative to the origin that's unambiguous. And one way I can anchor it is by creating dimensions to the origin. So I'm going to grab the dimensioning tool, select on the origin there, and then maybe this corner here, and I'll move down and I'll put in, say, an even 30. And that positions it horizontally to that corner. And I'm going to put in a vertical dimension as well. I'll put that over here. I'll make that an even 20. And now it's fully defined. It's turned all black, and you can see its position and its dimensions are now satisfied in the constraints engine. The other thing you'll notice about this, by the way, are these little images at the edges. Those are constraints that tell Inspire that this edge is vertical, and in this case, this edge here is horizontal. Now, you can change those. If I were to right-click on one of those little images of a constraint, you'll see it has a list of constraints in the context menu, and I can disable the one that we put there for you automatically. When I do that, you'll see part of the drawing now becomes undefined or under dimensioned. So now if I grab one of these corners, because that's not a vertical edge anymore, you'll see that it's free to move at any angle we want. If I want to reconstrain that to vertical, I can just right-click on the entity and I can pick from different constraints. In this case, I'll put the vertical back on, and now we're fully constrained again. Now, another thing you can do is, as a convenience, if you start an entity at the origin, so I'm going to start a new rectangle from the origin there and let go, we've created a constraint at the origin for you, and that means you don't have to dimension it relative to the origin anymore. It's just snapped right there. So when I just simply put on the two dimensions for height and width, you'll see that's now fully defined. So in the next video, we're going to go a little bit more into depth on creating constraints and dimensions in more complex drawings. The one other thing I want to show you before we leave, though, is that when you create a sketch now in Inspire, as I mentioned at the beginning, it creates a sketch entity. So I'm going to exit, so we're back out to the non-sketchy mode. I'm going to turn on my model browser, and you'll see now that there is a folder of sketches, and that sketch is now saved. So if I right-click and say Edit, I'm back into that sketch, which is preserved, and I can continue to edit it.
在 Sketch 这里呢，用户还可以添加变量，比如说你加一个尺寸，你可以把它变成一个变量创建，比如说这是 L1，或者你起一个别的名字，给它一个当前的值，比如说0.2，然后你可以在别的地方，你可以引用这样的一个变量，这样的话它就可以做一定的函数关系。那么你也可以直接做一个算术运算，比如说2倍的。好，草绘这一块呢，我们就介绍到这里。